Now let's move to the second session, Agri Startups, Seed to Shelf. I invite moderator of this session, Ms. Jayashree Nilkhan, Head of External Relations, India and Middle East, General Mills. A big round of applause for Jayashree ma'am. I invite the speakers, Mr. Sahil Jain, co-founder and CEO, Mighty Millets. Mr. Sahil Jain, I invite Mr. Sanket Mehta, founder, NutriFresh Farm Tech India Private Limited, Mr. Rohan Ursal, chairman and MD, Purandar Highlands Farmers Producer Company Limited, and Mr. Sanjeev Masalia, director, ERD Agro Ecosystems Private Limited. We are starting with the second session immediately. Session 2 is Agri Startups, Seed to Shelf. Moderator for this session is Ms. Jayashree Nilkhan, Head of External Relations, India and Middle East, General Mills. I request everyone to be seated. We are starting the second session immediately. Request everyone to kindly take their seats as we are heading towards the second session of this conference immediately. Kindly be seated as we are heading towards the next session. The path may not be clear, the road to success is never hassle-free, but we need to move relentlessly because life is like a bicycle. You need to keep moving to maintain the balance. Again, request everyone to kindly take their seats, and I hand over the mic to the moderator of second session, Ms. Jayashree Nilkhan, Head of External Relations, India and Middle East, General Mills. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrindmai. I think we should wait for a minute and give time to people to settle down. It was a long session and I think people are looking for a cup of tea or coffee. Hello everyone, and we are starting this session. The topic is very, very interesting. It's on agri startup. So we decided we will run fast because no startup can be successful if we are not running fast and if we are not scaling it up on time. So all my 4 panelists agree that we should finish and wrap up in 40 minutes while we are discussing the most important topic. Agree? Yeah. Thank you everyone. Agriculture is one of the most important segment in Indian economy. What connect agriculture is giving, I think we should focus on what G20 said. It connects Bharat with India. Agriculture is the culture for India which defines what we do, how we do, where we do. We have almost 1.3 billion people to feed, and the earlier panel has reiterated is again and again there are a lot of domestic opportunity as well as we have that 5% opportunity for export. We have a lot of resources, human resources specifically working in this field. This is very complex segment. There is a lot of momentum in agri startups which is propelling Bharat to do more innovations in the way we do our farming, in the way we are thinking about regenerative agriculture, how the products are going to the shelf. So let's not get into the complexities. Let's hear from all the 4 startups who are sitting on the dais what they are doing. So we start with the introduction. I request to introduce everyone very quickly and then we get into the question answer mode. We start with Sahil.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having me here. This is Sahil Jain. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mighty Millets. we are into building sustainable, healthy food products in the FMCG sector, and we primarily supply to the hospitality sector. Most recently, we have also been really interested in the B2C sector, where most of our competitors lie. So it's more sustainable, and in terms of its initiation, we have chalked out various programs to really boost our B2C sector as well. So yeah, and that's it.
Hello people, my name is Sanket Mehta. I am a co-founder at a company called as NutriFish Farms. So NutriFish Farms is basically into hydroponic farming. We have seen this, or we have heard this word hydroponic farming a long time ago, and still people have the perseverance that the sector is quite new and it's an upgrowing sector. However, we have witnessed the growth over the past 4 years in this hydroponic sector. We started with 10 acres of the facility, and right now we are at 48 acres of the growing facility. We are producing 42 different crops of produces and selling it across the modern chain, retail chain, general trade, and across various parts of India from Pune. So, and we are also witnessed with good awards like the Startup India Certificate Award, all of the Meaningful Business Award. And we have seen this sector grow by leaps and bounds in the past 5 years, and we are a part of this journey. So I'm really thrilled to be a panelist in one of the discussions from the agri startup sector.
Namaskar everyone, this is Rohan Ursul from Purandar Highlands Farmer Producer Company. Purandar Highlands works in the Purandar region, which is close to Pune. We are the country's first FPO to export fresh figs to Germany, Rotterdam and Hong Kong. And also very recently we launched India's, or probably the world's first ready-to-drink fig juice. And that's not the I mean, it's not just figs, it's about custard apples, it's about all the smallholder farmers in the region where we work. So yes, it's in line with our vision, wherein we want to untap we want to unravel the untapped potential which is there in the smallholder farmers, and that's how we've been working, right from plantations to up to the bread spreads, the juices and the exports. Everything is done by this bootstrapped FPO from Purandar region.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Sanjeev Masalia. I'm a director and co-founder of the ARD Agro Ecosystems Private Limited. We are in contract farming in Maharashtra and Gujarat. Particularly, we are working with that. We are supporting our farmers from non-perishable particular. We are working in the non-perishables. We are supporting our farmers to IPM to organic, developing the crops and getting the right premiums from our corporate buyers. We are the directly linkage to our farmers, to our buyers, and supporting him to be a sustainable models for their produce.
Thank you, everyone. We start with our questions, and the first question, I was going through the profile of all the speakers, and when I saw Sahil's profile, he was doing very good as a CA, Chartered Accountant. Sahil, my first question to you, after GST there is a lot of demand for CAs, and why did you come to agriculture, that too in a niche segment like millets? घर में बहुत मुश्किल से सबको खिलाना पड़ता है कि please आज भाकरी बनी है खा लो. So it is very tough segment according to my experience. Why are you here?
So this is more about the passion that I had and less about the scope in the sector. But yes, I did, when I started out as a chartered accountant, I worked in MNC for 2 years. I was really not happy with the corporate culture. I was looking to do something different, and at the same time, my mom was a big inspiration to me in the sense that she was really working towards people's health by, providing them nutritional consultancy since the last 10 years. So I could see the change in her clients, and that really motivated me to work in a similar field. And you know, we discussed it a lot of times, and also saw the scope in the sector, and in the coming years this is the place to be. And of course I am a big time foodie from my childhood, so I thought these two things really push me towards this sector.
Thank you, Sahil, and it gives me a lot of confidence that moms play a lot of role in choosing the career. So I'll ensure that all the moms are hearing this. Sanket, my next question to you, hydroponics, I'm myself an agriculture engineer, and I feel hydroponics is a revolutionary concept. You deliver almost 20,000 kgs of vegetable to retail shelf every day. And it's very difficult when it comes to perishable. We want to know how you are doing it.
Okay, just to give a data analytics, in F&B category, around 40% of food is wasted in transportation. So suppose you are buying a tomato at 100 rupees a kg, actually the price can come down to 60 rupees if all those wastages, the produce which is waste in the journey can actually reach the final consumer. So to mitigate these problems, the thing which is we understood in the journey is we need to keep the things very simple as possible. Now for example, I'll give you straight away with the examples at how we did this or how we achieved this. The first and foremost, when we were doing into F&B category, when we were going to deliver the produce for the first time, people asked that आप delivery कैसे करोगे, हमें fresh produce पहुंचाना है market तक. तो सबसे पहले किसी कंसल्टेंट ने बोला आप कोल्ड स्टोरेज लगाओ. हमने बोला ठीक है कोल्ड स्टोरेज लगाते हैं. कहाँ लगाना है? तो जैसे ही प्रोड्यूस बाहर निकलता है आप ठंडे पानी में डालो, नमक वाला पानी रहेगा, उसमें वो ठंडा हो जाएगा, फिर प्री कूलिंग करो, फिर कूलिंग करो, फिर ट्रांसपोर्ट जो है वो ठंडा रखो, और फिर जो लास्ट माइल जहाँ पे जाएगा वो ठंडा रखना पड़ेगा स्टोर पे, वो स्टोर वाला जब प्रोड्यूस घर लेके जाएगा वो ठंडा रखना पड़ेगा. नाउ यू सी ऑल द एंटायर चेन had to be made cold for that produce to be fresh enough to reach the market. But incidentally जो nature होता है crop का, that is such that कि अगर आप उसको shelf life लंबी दोगे, but as soon as उसकी जब chain cold chain broken हो जाती है, तो उसकी shelf life बहुत ज़्यादा deteriorate करती है, deteriorates really fast. And that is the reason the entire chain has to be either a cold chain or it has to be normal. अब cold chain करने में पैसे ज़्यादा लग रहे थे, स्टार्टअप था, बूटस्ट्रैप था, हमने वो नहीं किया, सिंपल रखा, प्रोड्यूस रात को ट्रैवल कराओ. आफ्टर 10 o'clock, आफ्टर 11 o'clock को प्रोड्यूस जब जाता है मार्केट में, क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशन ऑटोमेटिकली ठंडी होती है, देयर इज नो वे अ कोल्ड चेन इज रिक्वायर्ड, और जो प्रोड्यूस जहां लास्ट मेल तक जाता है उसको ठंडा रखेंगे. सो वी ट्राई टू कीप इट वेरी सिंपल कि प्रोड्यूस रात को करो, टेम्परेचर ऑटोमेटिकली रात को ठंडा होता है. सेकेंड जो इंपॉर्टेंट चीज होती है पेरिशेबल्स में, दैट यू हैव टू बी वेरी क्लोज टू द मार्केट. Come what may, the things are, the more distance that the food travels, the more nutritional loss it happens to the food. So that is why your warehouse or the centralized location should be very close to the market in which you want to deliver your produce to. Third and the most important thing that we did is we made demand-based production. Now when you say demand-based production, मतलब क्या होता है? हम लोग हाइड्रोपोनिक, वी आर इन हाइड्रोपोनिक ग्रोइंग, सो वी ग्रो क्रॉप्स, ऑल्सो क्रॉप्स लाइक स्पिनाचेस, कोरिएंडर, फेनुग्रीक, मिंट, बेसिल. अब विंटर के सीजन में ये क्रॉप्स ओपन में भी बहुत ज्यादा उगाए जाते हैं. तो हमने ये जो प्रोडक्शन है ये क्रॉप्स का, वो सिर्फ उस सीजन में लिया जहां पे उसका रेट आपको मार्केट में बेटर मिलता है, और यू डू नॉट गेट दोस प्रोड्यूसेस इन अ गुड क्वालिटी इन दिस मार्केट, इन दिस सिचुएशन. सो हमने एक एनुअल क्रॉप प्लान बनाते हैं जहां पे मार्केट रेट्स को हमने फिल्टर डाउन किया है, कहां पे आपको सबसे बेटर रेट मिलता है उस सीजन में आप उस क्रॉप को उगाइए, सो दैट यू गेट बेटर रेट्स इन द मार्केट. इंसिडेंटली आप माने या ना माने, बट टमाटोज के प्राइस बढ़ने वाले थे, हमें लास्ट ईयर ही पता था. द मोमेंट ये जो साइकिल होती है ये ऑटोमेटिकली होती है कि अब अक्टूबर आएगा तो आपको टमाटर 2 रुपए 3 रुपए किलो में बिकेगा आप जाके. दिस इज अ सीजन, ये सीजन चलती रहती है और ये होने वाला है. तो जो प्रेडिक्शन है उस मार्केट को किस तरह से आप केटर कर सकते हो इन अ कंट्रोल्ड एनवायरनमेंट कल्टिवेशन, दैट इज व्हाट वी डिड व्हेन इट कम्स टू डिलीवरिंग द फूड्स फ्रॉम टू द शेल्फ इन द मार्केट. लास्ट वन थिंग दैट वी डिड इज डेलीगेटिंग द वर्क. सो एज अ स्टार्टअप और एज अ को फाउंडर आपको ये हर बार लगता है कि मैं राजा हूं, I know each and everything. But it is not such. There are specialized people in transportation, in logistics, where you have to appoint the right people and delegate the job and trust his gut or trust his instinct कि वो जो करेगा वो सही करेगा. So as a startup, the learnings that I have understood is delegate the work and keep it simple. That is the major mantra of delivering the fresh FNV from the farm till the shelf.
Thank you, Sanket. I think the demand-based production is very, very apt thing which you told to everyone. 200 kgs, and yesterday when I went to get the vegetables, it's back to 35-40 rupees per kg, the tomatoes. So very interesting point. Also the cold chain, where you are saying that you ensure that your produce get harvested in the night and reaches to the consumer. I think this is classic example of Indian jugaad. We should be doing it more. Rohan, my next question comes to you, and you are handling a very, very sensitive, perishable, whatnot. Figs are very, very delicate fruit. Purandar figs have reached to various countries. Tell me one thing, there are a lot of stakeholders involved in agriculture. How did you manage your stakeholders? There could be government, there could be farmers, there could be intermediaries. And all of us are very interested to hear that how did you manage that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the whole journey for Purandar Highlands started in 2014 when I was pursuing my MBA, and that was the time I visited Fruit Logistica Berlin, one of the biggest trade fairs for fresh produce. And what I saw there was what changed and set the course for Purandar Highlands, because I saw farmers dressed in suits selling their produce proudly, and I could see even the highly perishable fruits being traded across the globe. So if that can happen somewhere in this world, then why can't the same thing can be replicated in my village? So when I came back, I started discussing the same thing with my colleagues here. These colleagues were experienced farmers, obviously from my village, but they were quite progressive in their thinking. And what we envisioned in 2014 finally became success in 2022. So it was a 8-year journey which we had to go through. So we started identifying what the problems are, where all, I mean, we can be pitch in, and obviously there are many stakeholders involved in this. One main, I mean, we already have a partnership with Bayer Crop Science. We signed an agreement with them wherein all the world practices, whatever happens in Turkey, whatever happens in Brazil, whatever happens in South Africa, is taught to our farmers in Purandar. We started learning how the practices are done across the globe, and then how we can do it in Purandar. So obviously Bayer Crop Science helped us gain knowledge about the world. We were thorough with our local knowledge. Then obviously we had a partner like Staypack who got in the packaging material for that. And finally the figs, which were perceived to be lasting only a day or two, we could successfully extend the shelf life of the same figs in controlled temperature to 18 days and in ambient temperature up to 8 days. So that was a major breakthrough of 8 years journey which Purandar Highlands took together. And obviously, as I said, 2014, it was a vision which I had seen personally, but it was very important for me also to share this vision or have all my farmers in line with the vision which I had seen. So it takes time, but as I said, we had very good partnerships with Bayer, with Staypack, and that's how we are progressing. So one by one we have started exporting our figs, and that's a very proud moment because never before the Indian figs were seen in Hong Kong, never before the figs were seen in Germany. And one important point again, as you said, in partnerships, in 2014 I met a buyer in Germany. The same person is our trade partner for exports today. So Don Limon or Pil Schindler GmbH based in Hamburg is today a partner of Purandar Highlands. So anything going global is together Purandar Highlands and Pil Schindler together going across all the countries there. So obviously it's all partnership, and single-handedly I think it would have taken many years, but with right partners at right place we could do it in 8 to 9 years.
Good to know, Rohan. So they say that it takes a village to raise a kid, and for Rohan, it took a globe to reach his figs to globe. Good to know that. Sanjeev ji, I'm coming to you. You are helping a lot of farmers. You are reducing the use of fertilizer. Very, very tough task. I want to know one thing from you. when you are doing this, when you are asking farmers to reduce the use of fertilizer, definitely it has an impact on their output. So how are you ensuring that our farmers are getting cost benefit by doing this?
See, basically, this is a very interesting because when we talk about the increase the revenue of the farmers and other things. See, the last sessions is the same thing was right that whatever the cost is a major cost is a input. Input cost is almost a 50% of the whatever their entire cost. So here we works with the farmers. We try to handle it. We explain him to first to go for the soil testings, because now the India still what they are doing, they are only following the POP package of practice standard, whether they required or not. Whether their soil conditions they are not aware about it. Their nutritions what they are looking for is requiring a soil, the pesticides. And important thing is there. We are helping him to go IPM to organic practice. We are never said the day one to go for the organic, right? But how much quantity, how to you to increase your yield without suffering and reduce your import cost, because we tie up with the direct manufacturers of the input supplies which is approved by the APEDA and NPOPs, and direct rate benefits goes to the farmers, and that we give us in a credits. Means here now the no burdens or the no stress to the farmers of the any borrowing the money for the running these farms and other things. And important, they agree when they realize the cost is reduced, benefit is there. Because whatever they procure from the market, any input supplies, here he gets a minimum 35 to 40% reduce the direct input supplies is there. Because sometimes you can't reduce the consumptions of the input supply, but you control the cost. You control the cost, you try to guide him because they needs the guidance. So we support our agronomists, we support our field officers to guide him. And then on that basis, they can start these things, they understand these things once, definitely, initially when we talk to the farmers, it's a challenging. They believe that 4 bags of I can use the urea, that give me the better yield. But it's not like that. It's required only the 2 bags or like that. So always time we can say the reducing this thing. And main is entirely issue of the cash flow. When you support in the credits, they reduce all the burdens of the borrowings, input cost reducing. And second things, the fair price what they're getting from our buyers on the day one to be quality wise. IPM to organics. So that is always time helping to these things, and reduce the cost is important. Otherwise, see, we can say I talk to the many farmers, they say for the chili production, they say I can put the 1 lakh rupees inputs and I get 1,25,000 after my produce. So what is the cost they can saving? Nothing. If I can control their price and they say your input cost is reduced, we can control this thing 35 to 40,000 and your selling is 1,25,000, that is the profit of these things. So initially we gets a challenge, we can face a lot of issue, farmer is not ready to listen us. But once we prove that, we say is a proof of concept. Always time when you work with the ground level with the farmer, you have to always time prove him. And when we prove it, they are now today fortunate, all farmer is following that system and gets a benefit of that.
Thank you, Masalia ji. So basically what you are saying is institutional tie-ups which has helped you. Another thing is the extension which you are doing with the farmers, and that's what getting the number in the bank increasing.
Yeah, because ultimately every farm practice you can see they borrow the money from the lenders or institution, and this is also the cost of the farm produce. So when you provide everything like to seeds, to input supplies, everything in a credit direct procured from the fully discount forward to the farmers, that is helps to the farmers to control the price, and they have to pay on the when they can, that payment is adjust against their produce then supply. So they don't need to borrow any outsiders from any lenders or the private lenders. You know how the private lenders play the role in the markets. Yeah.
Very clear. So coming back to our second round, I'll start with Sahil. So Sahil, I understand you must have been eating millets since your childhood, and I'm doing the same thing at home, ensuring they eat all bajri, nachni and jwari. Same we did with our G20 guest. We ensured that every day in the menu there is something or other thing made up of millets. So now the entire country had the taste of the millets. What I remember from the stats, approximate consumption of wheat and rice is of the tune of 50 kg per annum. The same for millets is 4 to 5 kg, that too in the states where already consumptions are there. If this is the same way consumption is increasing, and I don't see the production figure increasing to the same tune, where we are going to land? Are we going to have millets, or it will be like a superfood you have to get at 200 rupees per kg, something like that?
There are so many underlying variables for this. I mean, on one hand, millets are being promoted because of various reasons, right? And they are all strong reasons. Sustainability, food security, the nutritional benefits, double burden, so many health issues, conditions. So I feel that production, demand is definitely going to increase. Now, how it increases is a big question. And on the other hand, government is taking various initiatives, we all know that, for increasing the production of millets, encouraging exports and so on. But I really feel that everybody has a role to play here. The government agencies and the exporters as well. In the sense that when this effort is continued in a longer period of time, not just in the year of International Year of Millets, I mean, it has to go on for the next, sustainably for the next 5 years at least, so to see a change.
Yeah, Sahil, right now also I see the cost of millets is higher than our staples. So, which already show the demand is increasing and production is still not increasing that pace. I see a lot of government officials there today in the exhibition and in the conference as well. I think this is one point which we need to note, that there comes a time where same what happened to tomato can happen to bajra and nachni, that it goes to a price point where it's not affordable. So, Sahil, well noted your point. Sanket, coming back to your point on hydroponics, you have already reached 20,000 per day, right? 20,000 kgs of vegetable per day, and for any startup to be successful, it has to reach or scale it up very, very fast. So, I'm not forcing you on timeline to tell us about your 3 years target or 5 years, but where do you want to take it? Or is it feasible to make it double or triple in next 3 years?
Okay. To answer your question in a very, very short manner, it won't be possible for us to entirely start growing by ourselves. This is definitely a start where we are at from 10 to 33 to 48 acres now. My idea in future, in next 5 years or 10 years down the line, we want to create a cluster development program, wherein the farmers in the vicinity of 50 to 100 kilometers can convert their marginal land or a part of it into a controlled environment agriculture, where they'll be able to grow the vegetables of the season, off-season vegetables which can be grown and which can be sold in the market at a higher prices. So the cluster development program is the one which I want to grow in future in the next 5 years. Just to throw a number, currently we are at 48 acres. In the next 5 years, my idea is with this cluster, I want to grow up to 1,000 acres of a FMV in a single place, so that the transportation loss what we are incurring right now is reduced down from 40% to 5%, and where we will be able to cater a larger amount of market. Incidentally, with this 1,000 acres से आप इतना produce बेचोगे कहाँ? Now, we have been to Singapore, we have been to Hong Kong, we have been to Netherlands, we have been to various agricultural places. हम जब ये बोलते हैं ना कि मुंबई और पुणे के बीच का पॉपुलेशन ही 3 करोड़ है, उनकी आंखें खुले रह जाती है क्योंकि उनकी कंट्री की पॉपुलेशन 3 करोड़ होती है. So we have so many people to feed mouths to on a daily basis. Even 1,000 acre of the produce will barely reach areas till Gujarat or Karnataka and Maharashtra. These are the only areas where I'll be able to cater the market yet. So this is where my idea is in next 5 years or 10 years down the line.
Great, very great, Sanket. You are saying that you want to reach 1,000 acres. Which area you are in? Pune. So anybody from Pune have a farm, want to do hydroponics, can connect with Sanket today. My next question is to you, Rohan. We talk about your farmer producer company. There are a lot of farmer producer companies present today, and I think with your experience, we already heard about Sahyadri in the morning. With your experience, we want to know what are the pros and cons of working in an FPC?
As you said, pros and cons. So I mean, in such a structure, cons only come because you are not aware about the framework of how FPOs should function or what are the guidelines for when you're setting up an FPO. So taking our example for Purandar Highlands, we didn't immediately set up an FPO. In 2014, initially we started as a proprietary company. Purandar Highlands was a proprietary company. Then when we thought, okay, we are having a team of directors who have been delegated the responsibilities, who are able to cater to those responsibilities, then we shifted to Krushi Gut registration. And only in 2021, we registered ourselves as an FPO when we thought each and every we totally equipped and we have end-to-end solution right inside our directive board, and then we came as an FPO. So obviously the promotion of FPO, what we hear is going great because FPOs can do wonders for smallholder farmers, especially from regions where we come from. But there is always a caution because when you are forming an FPO, it is very important that the directors or the members, the forming committee know what are the exact guidelines, how is the shareholding, how is the voting rights, everything. Because I'll be very frank, especially in our country, it is very important to know the guidelines, because in the cooperative sector, it shouldn't happen that someone has formed a cooperative and then someone else is running that cooperative down the line. So obviously, it is very essential for the director boards to know what are the guidelines, and then you can become an FPO, else you have other options like LLP, partnerships or proprietary companies.
Yeah, Rohan, I think a lot of complexities in the structure, then the number of people which are part of FPC doesn't make it easy. So good to know that you're already having success. I have a counter question for you. There are 10,000 FPOs which government is supporting. I think it was announced in 2020's budget. What do you have in terms of FPOs? If they are supported by government, are they more successful?
See, 10,000 FPOs is very ambitious project which Government of India has launched. I mean, it is government's job is to push the FPOs or the formation of the FPOs. But again, as I said, when you're forming an FPO, whenever we go outside or whenever, even we encourage other colleagues in our Purandar Taluka or in Pune district to form FPOs. But when you're forming an FPO, it should be very clear that what your vision, mission and goal statement is. Many times there are many FPOs which don't have any vision at the time of forming, and just because there is a goal of setting up 10,000 FPOs, there are many FPOs coming up. But if you don't have any vision, if you aren't having any mission statement or goal statement, I see many FPOs failing at the same time. So in a run to register yourself inside that 10,000 FPOs, it is also very important what socio-economic impact you are having in your region or how much impact your FPO can have in that region.
Clear, Rohan. My next question is to you, Sanjeev ji. You are working for a lot of corporates. You are helping them to do organized farming. I want to know what role they play. Your role is clear. You are helping them. What role they play or they should play?
I believe this corporates, buyers, or the what we say FMCG companies, they will play the pivotal role in the entire food supply security, what we say. Because what I experience, we work with ITC, Olam, Graphic, Omni Actives, we are working with them. We understand their models. They want to buy, procures from the farmers. They want to give the fair price to the farmers. But a lot of challenges what we see, because first thing why we are in these pictures between the farmers and our corporate buyers. We say we are the bridge between the farmers and corporate buyers. Our buyers, advantage of these corporate buyers, what they can hold 2 cycles crops and their warehouse and this thing. Otherwise, they can't run their plants and units, because earlier the HUL say that the constant supply of the entire years, the quality parameters and other things. They are working, they are supporting. They works is supporting to the farmers groups and everything. But now the challenges is there that getting the quality and quantity in a one place is still a question. But they are working with those things, so we started to work with this. Earlier the government mission was the one crop, one district. That's, I believe, is a very challenging mission and almost impossible size. But with the support of the Amul Federations, we started in Gujarat, the one village, one crop. So that is a best models to be sustainable, fair price and everything's why to getting the truckload supplies and quality which they are looking for to easily maintain and monitoring in every village, not individual farmers, is always can be a importance for the corporate buyers. And I think so they can play such a big roles in the futures that they can easily reduce the burden of the governments to be supporting the farmers, because now the government is taking a lot of burdens like a state or centers to supporting the farmers for the sustainabilities. But they are the biggest players, what I see in the futures, and that is our observations, that they will play the biggest role in these industries.
Thank you, Masaleji. And what I see as an industry trend, a lot of FMCG companies, we have almost all the big FMCG companies in the world present in India, and all of them, including General Mills, they are working with farmers. And it's not easy for them as well, because they have their own complexities of being corporate, and FPOs have their own complexities of being a farmer-driven organization. So I think the time will come where these things will match and they will marry each other. Now it's a time we had round of questions with our panelists. Is there somebody who want to ask question to our panelists? We want to take quick 3 questions. Please help with the mic. Please be specific to whom you are asking the question.
Hello, Sanket. Question is to you. This is Vinayak Asundi. I am a chartered accountant, more interested in farming also. My first question is, what is the difference between, your traditional farming and hydroponic? What is the time, for the produce to, what can I say? What is the difference in the timing of the harvest? Let us say if I grow some kind of vegetables in traditional farming, suppose it takes, let us say 3 months. Does it take lesser time in hydroponic? Next question is, how about aquaponic? So what are the advantages compared to hydroponic when it comes to aquaponic? These are some of the questions.
First and foremost, difference between traditional farming and hydroponic farming. Hydroponic is basically soil-less cultivation. हम नॉर्मल एग्रीकल्चर में सॉइल का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, हम यहाँ से सॉइल ही निकाल देते हैं. सॉइल की जगह वी यूज़ वेरी यू कैन से स्टैंडर्ड प्रोडक्ट्स लाइक कोकोपीट, जिनका EC और pH बहुत ही मेंटेन रहता है, स्टैंडर्ड रहता है, एंड वॉट एवर न्यूट्रिएंट्स आर रिक्वायर्ड बाय द क्रॉप्स एट अ स्पेसिफिक टाइम फ्रेम, we give it in an adequate quantity in the water and give it to the plant. So that is nothing but the hydroponic farming. When you said, does the crops take a shorter time in hydroponics to grow and a longer time in traditional farming? सर जितना टाइम किसी बच्चे को 9 महीने लगते हैं पैदा होने के लिए, तो इधर भी 9 महीने उतना ही लगते हैं. So it doesn't change, you cannot change the timelines of it, but yes, what we do is we try to maintain the gaps. Like we have a separate nursery area. For lettuces, for example, it takes around 40 to 45 days for the crops to grow. So generally a farmer puts that seed in a particular farm and it takes 45 days for the cycle to entirely grow. What we do over here is we have a separate nursery. The seeds get to a certain age or certain size in nursery in 10 days. The post 10 days are in the second phase of it, where we give a little larger space. We shift that after the 21st day into the main growing area, and then that is how. So in a particular area, if you say, where it's the final harvesting coming out, instead of having 6 cycles a year, which a normal farmer has, we have 18 cycles a year. So it's just the management of space that we do to get the produce better or yield better from a particular space area. Now difference between aquaponic farming and hydroponic farming, in aquaponic one thing is added in the entire structure is the nutrients are given to the plants via fish excreta. So you feed the fish excreta is used as the nutrient for the plants. Definitely in this scenario, the fish also can be sold, the produce also can be sold. It's a win-win situation for both the sides. But what my experience or my colleagues' experience is, it is difficult to maintain the nutrient when there is one more layer or a fish is involved. When a living organism is involved, it's difficult to maintain the nutrients level, wherein you have to track it and top up the additional nutrients required to give to the particular plants. So this is the major difference between an aquaponic farming and a hydroponic farming. Hope I answered your question well. The nutrient will vary, yes.
Does the nutrient value differ when you do soil farming and hydroponic?
See, when I said you cannot change the nature of the crop, suppose a particular EC or a pH is required, it is required, but then soil itself has certain ECs and the pH. And that is why when people have said here that we do soil testing, that is where the soil testing comes into the picture. Suppose a particular EC is required for a particular plant, you know how much EC is available in the soil and you top it up with those types of nutrients. Over here, since there is no soil involved, we will inject that much amount of nutrient which is required by the crop from starting of the crop, from the initiation of the crop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
Hey, thank you for
Yeah.
the insightful session. I think it was wonderful to know all of your experience. My question to Mr. Rohan is, what was your challenge when you started as a proprietary in 2014 and then moved it to FPC? At the ground level, does farmer get convinced on, how, what are the challenges in convincing them? And, why would they sell the product to you, right? So just if you can share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, as I said, 2014 was something which changed my outlook towards farming. And then, as I said, you need to align your vision with your colleagues. So, it is very important what team members you get in initially with you, because if they believe you, then that's how you see the company growing. I cannot, even today, Purandar Highlands doesn't onboard every farmer in the Purandar Taluka. We train them for 2 to 3 years, we check how they are performing, we check how their practices are, and then only he becomes a shareholder. So you cannot target all people in the region, but you need to be very selective about who you are choosing. Do they share the same vision, or do they believe in your vision? And if yes, then that's how you see the company growing. So 2014 to 2021, it was all about finding the gaps wherein we can pitch in, then finding the right members. So today we have a farmer who is also an MSc microbiologist and who quit his job in ITC, started his farming again, and also does the processing for the company. So that's how the company is growing. We have a director who already has a nursery. He also is a fig grower and a custard apple grower. So what responsibility he has is preparing the best plants or the best saplings which can be given to the farmer. So that's how we have aligned their current work with what the company actually required, and that's how in parallel it is working together for Purandar Highlands.
Thank you, Rohan.
One more question, please. Sincere request. It's for the entire panelists.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you everyone for being here. This question is for the entire panel here. Since you guys, Sanket being a grower, Masalia Saab handling an FPO, Purandar being one of the largest FPOs in Sahil, also dealing with a large growing community, it becomes challenging to track these entire operations together. So how can you guide these FPOs with the right use of technology so that they can consolidate their growing operations together? If you could just, give a sense of what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Okay, for Purandar Highlands, I can say fortunately or unfortunately, we haven't made use of technology. Fortunately, I would say it because we have been successful in our research and we have successfully exported, we have successfully processed the products which are very market ready, which are, they are all in line with the world parameters which we are doing for our domestic market. Unfortunately, because when we are scaling up, we don't have we have enough data, but we don't have the right data at the right time to acknowledge what our learnings are. So obviously there are points wherein as an FPO we need to grow. But again, in agri-tech or digitech space, what we hear, there is a lot of buzz. We see in all social media everywhere that there is a lot of funding coming in. There's a lot of research going on agri-tech. But I believe, I'm not sure, but Purandar maybe we belong to some remote region which is very close to Pune, and yet no agri-tech company since till date hasn't reached us. So obviously there are lot many technologies coming in, but they are designed somewhere and then we are asked if this is applicable to you, and obviously we have a big no because we want something which is prepared for us and which is done for us and after identifying our issues. So I think there is a lot of gaps which need to be filled. As an FPO, we obviously look forward to connecting with many agri-tech or digitech companies wherein, because it is essential, we have that space when we are scaling up from here onwards.
Thank you, Rohan. I think what he summarized, we will not taking any more question. The panelists will be available after the talk and you guys can connect to them one-on-one. We see a lot of interest and momentum in agriculture segment. We really need simplification. We don't need more complexities, and that's where the agri startups are helping. When I need to get my tomatoes in the morning, I just go to any of the app and put, I need this and I get it in the morning. That's very, very simple for me. So it's making our life simple. According to estimates, we're gonna have 10,000 agriculture startups in this decade. On behalf of all the panelists, I am thanking to BCCI and Kisan to provide this platform to startups to explore, to tell about their journey, and for us to know that what startups are doing. Thank you so much BCCI and Kisan. Hope in future we will see many more startups coming to this platform and helping us and the stakeholder to grow the agriculture ecosystem. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for your valuable inputs. I request everyone to be here for a few moments. I request Director General Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Shri Sandeep Khosla ji, to kindly come upon the dais and felicitate the moderator of this session, Ms. Jayashri Neelkhan, Head of External Relations, India and Middle East, General Mills. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. And I request the moderator to felicitate the speakers with memento and participation certificate. Mr. Sahil Jain, co-founder and CEO, Mighty Millets. Mr. Sanket Mehta, Founder NutriFresh Farm Tech India Private Limited. Mr. Rohan Ursal, Chairman and MD, Purandar Highlands Farmers Producer Company Limited. And Mr. Sanjeev Masalia, Director, Erd Agro Ecosystems Private Limited. Thank you so much, everyone. A request for a group photo.